Hello there, everybody. It's Mike. So I have a question for you. Question is, can borderline personality disorder be cured? Before I go any further, let me just say that this channel is devoted to non-borderlines who have been or are currently in a romantic relationship with somebody who has borderline personality disorder. This This channel is designed for people who are in pain and who are suffering from having been in or are currently in a traumatic, toxic, disempowering experience. If you are with a borderline, or if you are a borderline and your life is good and you're happy and you have a good relationship and you're in therapy and you're making progress and you have good relationships, then this channel isn't for you. Go watch another channel. But if you are somebody who has suffered with the pain of having been in a very toxic relationship with a borderline and you're still, like some people I talk to 10, 20, 30 years later, still in huge amounts of pain and still dysregulated and trying to find themselves, then this channel is for you. Let me also just say that I am not a mental health professional. So anything I say is my opinion and my observation and my experience. And so, take that for what it is. All right, so now let's get to the question. Can borderline personality disorder be cured? My opinion, based on my experience, based on my observation, and based on my research and interaction with not only people who've been with borderlines, but with borderlines themselves, is that I have come to the conclusion that borderline personality disorder is a mental illness that cannot be cured. Can it be dealt with? Can somebody effectively manage their symptoms, and can they have healing functional relationships? The answer to that question is a hesitant but definite yes. I do believe that they can. But I think it takes tremendous amount of work. But in terms of can the actual disorder itself be cured, the answer to that from my perspective is a firm no. It cannot. Why is this important? Because the fantasy and the delusion and the extremely attractive fantasy that actually creates all of the pain for both the borderline and for the partner of the borderline is that this problem can be fixed, that the borderline can be fixed. And the first attempt to cure the borderline comes from relationships. So borderline personality disorder is a huge disorder, and it affects all kinds of things. The borderline knows that their entire life is affected by it. But in terms of the external effects and symptoms of it that cause the most, that bring about the most attention and arguably cause the most damage to others, is in close relationships, most specifically in intimate relationships. In fact, I have found that on a superficial level, people who superficially engage with borderlines may not even know that the person is borderline. That's because there isn't enough intimacy to create the problem. In my experience with my borderline ex, because I am a survivor of this is how I came about coming to this channel and healing. And by the way, if you want to heal, there is a specific protocol to heal from the damage of having been with a borderline. If you're still walking around, if you're one of the walking wounded, if you're a zombie, even months or years after, and you can't seem to find your joy or your just your sense of self, please, next to the subscribe button, click the join button, because on that I teach you exactly what I did to achieve a state of healing. So if you're not a borderline, meaning you don't have the very specific psychological and perhaps physical um, brain issues that are going on that cause borderline personality disorder, you can be completely healed. But there are very specific things you have to do. It's like, two examples. One is if you're in a canoe and the canoe tips over and you get out of the canoe and watch the canoe hoping that it'll flip back over again, guess what? It's not going to flip back over again. You have to go in there and flip it up, flip it over. Another example that I like to use is, when you get bit by a zombie, you become infected and you become a zombie. And that infection, even if you never see another zombie again in your life and you go lock yourself in a room, that infection is going to take over and it's going to get worse. It doesn't get better. You have to get the appropriate antibiotic to cure up that, assuming it's a bacterial infection. And having been pulled into and enmeshed with a borderline to such a degree that you have experienced the damage and the pain and the doubt and the shame and the guilt and the cognitive dissonance that never goes away and the sadness and the depression and all of that, that means you've been infected and you have to do the proper sequence of actions to be cured. I cured myself. I mean, cured isn't the right word. I've achieved a state of healing, and I am in that state of healing right now. If you want that, click the join button, and I tell you exactly how to do that. All right, so getting back to why borderline personality disorder cannot be cured, and right now, why is this important? It's important because if you've gotten involved with a borderline and you've stayed with them for literally more than 48 hours, and people get upset with me when I say that, but I mean, you get bit, that's it. Once you get bit and that infection gets in there, it happens very quickly. So unless you went on one date and went, wow, there is something up with this person, I don't feel safe, I'm out of here. If you fell in love and you were with them for just the shortest period of time, then what ends up happening is that you become deluded into the fantasy, number one, that you've met your soulmate. That is the first thing that happens. And the type of people who get involved with borderlines are a very specific type of person. If you want to call yourself an empath, I'm fine with that. I talk about that a lot, but if that's how you want to identify yourself, I am in agreement with you that empaths are the ones that get involved with borderlines. If you want to call yourself codependent, if you want to call yourself, a carer or, whatever it is, call yourself whatever you want. But there's a specific personality type that is drawn to the borderline and the NPD. They're very similar. And in some ways, you can't tell the difference. And truth be told, in terms of the effects on you, there is no difference. They're so close together. But in terms of somebody who doesn't have a personality disorder, there's a very specific personality type that gets involved with borderlines. And what ends up happening is that once you get in there and you get bit, which is the first experience, is you fall deeply and passionately in love. And you've found the ultimate partner, and this is your soulmate, this is your twin flame, this is it, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life, and there's this feeling of I've been waiting for this my whole life, and I've finally found that other piece that makes me happy. The borderline is also having that experience and sharing that with you, and it increases in both of you. It creates this delusional fantasy of maintaining that. Now you will find out. Sometimes it'll happen very quickly. In my case, it happened very quickly. For some of you, you may not become aware that there's a problem for quite some time. Maybe it'll take weeks or months. Some people say it takes years. I don't believe that. I think they believe that, but I think there's still red flags. We talk about that. But however long it takes, you find out very quickly that there is a serious problem. And that you are the only one who has the answer. So what empaths, codependents, partners of borderlines talk about is Um, they'll start talking about the guilt that they feel and the responsibility and the intense compassion. This is another thing that is that you see with partners of borderlines, is their personality type is that they have intense, overwhelming compassion. In fact, the feelings of love and compassion and pity and the desire to caretake and save the other, the borderline becomes absolutely overwhelming and irresistible. So they become enmeshed and they get trapped within that. They can't escape it. Again, there are people on the channel that say, I've been out of the relationship for X amount of months or years. I still love them and I still think about taking care of them and I have nothing but compassion for them. So what ends up happening is that they focus on that and they don't become aware of the other aspect which is happening, whether they're aware of it or not. Many of them are, which is that they become addicted to the promise of what this relationship will be if only they can figure out the exact way to relate to the borderline, or if they can figure out exactly how to heal, to nurture, to fix the borderline. I myself, and I should have known better, I've been in 12-step work and therapy and in spiritual practice my entire adult life. And I was in my 50s when I got involved with the borderline that I was with. And I should have known better, and I completely believed that I was the one. I was the only one that was going to have the strength and the knowledge and the ability, because I knew her better than anybody else. And my love was going to finally heal the wound within her. And what I was hoping for in that was that she would turn around and love me forever. I wanted to have the love that came to me those first few weeks we were together. And I remember telling her that once. I said, I want to be with the person I was with those first few weeks. She didn't like that at all. She got very upset when she heard that. And I can understand that. But that is the delusion. So the delusion is that not only will you be the only one, and it is your responsibility to fix them, and once you do fix them, they will love you. And that's really what this is about. For those who are with borderlines, whether you're aware of it or not, whether you admit it or not, the main driving force of this is not the compassion, it's not the good sex, it's that they will finally love you on the deepest level, and they will have such tremendous gratitude that they'll never leave. If you don't have that fantasy, you're either in denial or you're not telling me the truth, because I know that's why you're there. So that's why what does that have to do with can borderlines be cured? Because you believe that they can. First, you go under the delusion that you're going to cure them, that your love is going to cure them. That's why you have gotten the feeling, and the borderline has given you that feeling. They might have outright told you, like mine did, that you are the one who can give me what I need, and if we just get together, and if you can just love me the right way, or sometimes the borderline will say, if I can just align myself to you the right way, or combination goes back and forth between those two, then they'll love you and it'll all be okay and it'll all be wonderful. My borderline told me of all the ways that she was going to fix me and heal me and love me and blah, blah, blah. And of course, none of those things came true because she has a mental illness that will never go away. It's called borderline personality disorder. Now, you may have already come to that conclusion, and that's not enough. That's not enough to get you out of that very toxic situation and relationship. So let me share with you the realization that actually allowed me to continue to do the work, because even this awareness wasn't enough to take me out of the addiction, the rumination. People call it rumination, but it's addictive obsession to get me out of the obsession of, where is she? What is she thinking? Are we going to get back together? And when are we going to get back together? And what can I do this time? And I should have said this. And if I can just get her into therapy, that was mine. If I can just get her into therapy, once I've got her in the office with the therapist, and the therapist is going to say this, that, and the other thing, and she'll become aware, and she'll go, oh my God, oh yes, now I know, and I'm going to... That was my fantasy. You have some fantasy along those lines as well. Except when you realize that, number one, this is a mental illness that will never go away. If you can accept, number one, that this is a mental illness that will never go away, this is very helpful. Because then you have to find out the hidden secret of what truly triggers the intense, painful, traumatic, toxic reaction that the borderline unleashes on you. And that is this: your fantasy that they have and that you have, that you are the one that will love them enough. If you can just muster up enough love and love them enough, that love will finally heal the wound in them, and then they will be cured. That is your belief, whether you want to accept it or admit it or not. That is your belief. Because you wouldn't stay, let's be honest. You've been hurt so many times. They have abandoned you, ghosted you, lied to you, cheated on you, attacked you, demeaned, devalued you, criticized you, maybe physically even attacked you, stolen your car. I mean, your borderline has their own way of doing things. You have gone through that so many times. You didn't go through it once or twice. You went through it more times than you can count. And the only thing that keeps you going is knowing that you're this close. It's just out of reach. And if you can just get there and snatch it, get to the healing cure that you know you're the only one that has, and she knows it or he knows it, you're just this close. And to put all that time and effort, you put 10 years into it, and you're almost there. You know it was there the last time she split or he split on you. It was there, and you almost had it. You had it 99.99%. You saw it. You went to bed. You held hands. And then the next day, something happened, and there's something, oh crap, if I hadn't have said that. Mine was, I said the phrase magical thinking. Had I not said, in my mind, had I not said the phrase magical thinking, she would still be with me and we'd be okay. You have that one thing, you were almost there. And if you had just said the right thing in the way, and just if you had whatever the heck it was, you're not going to give up now. How long have I been doing this? 10 years. I'm not going to give up. Except that the hidden truth about borderline personality disorder is that the very thing that you think is necessary to heal them, and the very thing that they think is necessary for their healing, is the deep, intimate love. They want to be loved on the deepest level, their core essence. You want to. You desperately, you want more than anything. The thing you want the most in the whole universe is to take this intense, driving compassion and love and understanding and nurturing, and if they could just feel how intensely you love them. And your whole world is about giving that to them. And if they can just open up and not run away, because they're scared of it. They're scared of the love. And if they could just sit there and let you love them and not run away, if you could chain them to a chair and make them receive your love, that it would overwhelm them. And then they would be healed and it would all be okay. You're this close. You spent 10 years. You're not going to give up now. Yep, they did it again. And this time it was worse than last time. And I don't know how I'm ever going to survive the pain on this, but I'm not giving up. That's the delusion. Because what ends up really happening with a borderline is that you actually did accomplish your objective. You gave them what they really wanted. From their perspective, they actually felt the love. It got in. and it actually did its work. The problem is, at the core essence of borderline personality disorder, and you have to get over this if you want to heal, they cannot accept your love. It is impossible. The very thing that they want the most is the very thing that drives them to split on you, to ghost you, to cheat on you, to lie to you, to steal your money, to steal your car and leave you, to attack you, to accuse you of doing things that you couldn't even possibly have imagined. All you did was love them, and they're attacking you like you're the worst person in the world. The delusion is that this time, if you love them even more, it'll fix them. They are splitting on you because your love hit home. That's why there is no hope. Because you're going on the delusion, if I can finally do it right, if I can finally love them the right way, it'll all be okay. But the truth is that you have loved them. Every single time that they've split on you, they've split on you because of one or a combination of two reasons. Number one, because your love actually hit them and they felt it. And it creates a reaction they have no control over. That's why it's a mental illness. They have no conscious control. Even if they have an awareness of it happening, they have no control over it. They can't help but turn and attack you for it. That's the first one. The second one is that you might just be sitting there driving along, and the light hits your face in such a way that they realize that they're in love with you and they feel love, and that immediately forces them to hate you. And so out of nowhere, they're attacking you, and you're like, I didn't even say anything this time. I'm just sitting here. And I looked at my watch, but that's because I wanted to know what time the movie started, because I wanted to take you to the movie. You want to take me to a movie? Who the hell do you think? You said you wanted me to look up the movie. Oh, I said you should look up the movie. I can't believe you are doing this to me. I know you want to go to that movie because you want to see that chick's ass in a bikini because you mentioned it earlier, and you have your girlfriend who used to work at that, and I know exactly what you're doing. You want to throw it in my face, and you think I'm going to... That's because that all happened because she looked at you and felt love. And that intimacy and the vulnerability forced her to destroy you. So the whole fantasy that if you can just love them the right way, they'll turn around and love you back. When you can realize that the very thing that you're trying to do is what forces them to split on you. And if you realize that's because they have an incurable mental illness that will never go away, then you can let go. Now, when it comes to therapy, here's what I've discovered through my research, experience, and communication with others, is that there is a percentage of borderlines that can get into a ongoing temporary state of recovery. I use my words very carefully. Ongoing temporary state of recovery, which means it's one of these mental illnesses that can erupt out of nowhere. And so even if they've had periods where they've been to therapy and they've learned how to manage their symptoms, at any given time they can regress. So that's important. You need to know that if you're wanting to be with them. Second thing is that if they do get into therapy, they have to have a real honest desire for their own, not for you. They can't go to therapy for you. So like me, I was trying to get mine into therapy for me. You need, and I even said to her, if you want me in your life, you're going to have to go to a therapist who deals with borderline personality disorder. And that was the wrong thing to do, because even if she got into therapy for me, it wouldn't take. Very unlikely. It's possible, but very unlikely. If, however, she ever decides to go to therapy for herself because she doesn't want to be in pain anymore, and because she wants to have a relationship for herself, because she's aware that she's destroying all of the relationships in her life, then after 10 years. It really does. It takes about 10 years of intense, regular therapy to understand and manage their symptoms, which is, the splitting. Then maybe they'll be able to be in a relationship. But even then, when they're in the relationship, it won't be because they've stopped splitting. They will still see their partner as their parent. That will never go away. And they will never stop splitting. So whenever the other person finally loves them to such an extent that it reaches home, they will split. And the only difference between that and the toxic borderline is that the one that's been in therapy will have some technique to be able to manage the split without devastating their partner or destroying the relationship. In some examples that I've heard, if I'm remembering correctly, one person said, I still split, but I have to tell my husband, I need you to leave the house for the afternoon. And that's because this person understands that what has happened is that they need to go heal themselves. The borderline that is not in therapy will want you to fix them or blame you. They're making you responsible by punishing you when they damage you or attack you or ghost you or discard you, whatever it is that they do. They're still holding you responsible. That's why they do it. But if they have enough therapy within them to feel it, and the split, as I understand it, doesn't change. I don't think that it lessens. I could be wrong about that, but I think it's just as intense. They just have an awareness that, I'm splitting. I now have to take specific actions in order to go and manage this split. And so for the sake of the relationship, in this one case anyway, my husband has to leave the house for X amount of hours while I go and deal with it. And then when he comes back, then she's able to stay. And she's able to stay in the relationship and make it work. So for those of you who, like me, are attracted to the borderline because what you really want is the most intense, beautiful love and nurturing that you've ever imagined, that is going to be far different from what you're going to end up with, even if somebody gets into therapy for 10 years, without you, by the way. They can't be in a relationship with you for those 10 years. After those 10 years, they've gotten some help. It's not going to be the same. They're going to know that they are idealizing you, and they're not going to want to engage in that, which is what you want. You want to be on the other side of that idealization. And they're not going to, because the fantasy has been destroyed, which is that if you can just love me, I will be healed. Since they know that you can never heal them, then they'll never be in that space that you want them to be, which of course they never got to, which is, I'm so grateful to you because you loved me. You'll never have that. What you will have is a real relationship, but it's going to be without all that drama. And if you have been attracted to the borderline, guess what? You want that. So in order to heal, you're going to have to take a look at your need to be worshiped and adored and be able to control people with your loving and your kindness and get them to love you forever and just, be so grateful and all. You got to take a look at all that stuff. There's a bunch of other things that need to happen, which we're not going to talk about here. But that's the bottom line. Number one, this is a mental illness. If you don't want to accept this as a mental illness, I welcome you into your continued hell. Number two, it is a mental illness that will never be cured. It will never go away. Number three, the very thing that you think can heal them is the very thing that causes them to hurt you. So your whole reason for being there is now destroyed. Because even though you think you're there to love them, your true reason is to be loved. And once you realize that they are incapable of loving you because your love will drive them to have, it's like having, having an allergy to your favorite food. Imagine your favorite food, and now imagine every time you eat your favorite food, it forces you to violently, throw up and have diarrhea. That's what you do to the borderline. I can hear the borderlines laughing right now because that's exactly what happens. That you are so tasty and juicy to them until the love actually hits them and they feel that it's really intimate, and then they can't stand you. They really can't. They really cannot stand you. So, I hope I've said everything here. It is a mental disease. It's a mental illness. And you have to recognize that. It's incurable, which means that there's no hope. There's zero hope of you having a relationship with your borderline until they've been in therapy for at least 10 years. And by then, trust me, both of you will have forgotten and moved on. And 3, what was number 3? And 3, the very thing that you want is the very thing that drives them to destroy you. And if you can accept and internalize those 3 things, it won't take away your addiction, but it will give you potentially, hopefully, enough power to begin to shift and start walking away reluctantly. Now, if you want to know how I did it, click the join button. 3-pronged approach, which I go into in depth doing, which is number 1, you need therapy with a qualified therapist who knows how to deal with codependence in a cluster B relationship. Number 2, coda.org, www.coda.org. Go there, it's free, and just follow people's instructions, work those steps. And then 3, have a daily meditation. I teach you a meditation, 2 meditations that will open up your brain and get you to be thinking more clearly and make you feel safe and connected. It's 2 different breath meditations, and we're only on phase 1. There's going to be a phase 2 and a phase 3 of all of this. So the bottom line is click the join button, and hopefully I've helped you to become aware so that you're not trapped in your delusion. And let me say finally, I say it very cavalierly. I'm very cavalier with people, and I know I am. But I remember how impossible it felt to walk away and to go no contact. But that's the only thing that you can do. For them, the best thing you can do for the borderline is to walk away and go no contact. The only thing you need to tell them is that this is damaging to me. I really think you should look into getting help for borderline personality disorder. Having said that, what you do is none of your business. I have to go no contact. I love you. Bye-bye. That's the kindest thing you can do for them. That is the most helpful thing you can do for them and for yourself. All right, that's it. I'll see you guys when I see you.